UFC Nashville is over. The main event between Derek the Black Beast Lewis and Taliesin Teixeira ended in an emphatic knockout once again by Derek Lewis. There was some controversy in the stoppage, and there was a brutal upset, huge robbery of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson against Gabriel Bonfim. We're going to break down the entire card, starting with the first fight on the card up to the main event. Stick around, we'll break them down. Overall, UFC Nashville was a very good card. I said this before on my betting predictions video that this is how UFC fight nights should be, right? We had some notoriety as far as names go. Stylistically, these matchups were very exciting. They delivered. There were a lot of finishes on this card. But this is how UFC fight nights should be. We shouldn't be getting UFC fight nights where we've got 5 people or 4 people on the prelims making their debuts. People that we have no idea who they are, right? People are going to these sold out arenas to see people that they know, right? And so I feel like UFC Nashville was the first fight night in a while that I looked at and went, yeah, this is what it should look like. Starting it off, Fatima Klein looks really good. I said before this, I wasn't really buying into how big the odds were on this fight for her, because she was a huge favorite. I think she opened up way more than minus 1,000, I want to say. But either way, she only had one fight in the UFC, knocked out her opponent, gained a lot of steam. So, I got the hype behind her, but she took 3 rounds to Melissa Martinez, pieced her up the whole 3 rounds. I don't think there were really any moments in this fight that Melissa Martinez really had Fatima in any sort of danger. And Fatima, in round 3, she throws one of the most beautiful, I would call it a question mark kick, but it was very Kamaru Usman Leon Edward. It reminded me so much of the Leon Edwards kick. Same side jab, follows it up with a fucking leg kick from hell. Caught her right on the chin, gave her a couple juicers to finish it off. Really impressive win for Fatima Klein. This woman is going to get a lot of steam behind her. It doesn't take a lot, and this is going to sound terrible, but it's the truth. It doesn't really take a lot in women's MMA to get a lot of steam behind you, right? She's got 2 TKOs in a row now. People are going to be tuning in to watch Fatima Klein, right? So it's not very often that we get TKOs and KOs in women's MMA. At least it feels like that now. I mean, Jessica Andrade, Amanda Nunes, when those types of gals were in their prime, I feel like we were getting more finishes. But Fatima, she's gonna have a lot of stock after this fight. So she moves on to 8-1. Moving on, Mike Davis versus Mitch Ramirez. Mike Davis looked pretty good. I had a feeling that Mike Davis was going to be a lot faster and a lot stronger than his opponent, but it was pretty obvious, honestly. A little bit more than I thought it was going to be, but Mike Davis is a lot. He's a very tough matchup, and I've said it before. Man, one of the main reasons that Mike Davis is in the spot that he's in is because he doesn't fight very often, but he's young, right? He might get another fight in before the end of the year, very likely. But Mike Davis is very talented. I think we are going to see him in the lightweight rankings here very soon. I think he would have been in the lightweight rankings already if he would fight more often, honestly. So he looked really good against Mitch Ramirez. Got him out of there in round 2 towards the end of the round. Mitch Ramirez has had a tough go at it. His first first little bit in the UFC, but that's how it goes, especially when you're going against a guy like Mike Davis. He's good everywhere. Very fast and strong on the feet. Good takedowns. Clean jiu-jitsu. And Mitch Ramirez did good when he had Mike Davis on his back with the body triangle. Like, he was staying safe, but he wasn't necessarily doing much to, like, get the body triangle off of him and get Mike Davis off his back. There was no sort of defense to try and break the body triangle. He just he said, oh, okay, I'm here for the round. I'm just going to stay safe. Which, to a certain extent, I understand. Like, yeah, you're going to start back on the feet next round, but he gave Mike Davis, not that it mattered because the judges weren't involved, but he did give Mike Davis a lot of control, especially in that first round, when he probably could have gotten up. At one point, he had one of Mike Davis's hands, his choking hand. He had a 2-on-1, completely brought it over to the other side. Choke is out. Most of the time when that starts to happen, the guy who is on the back will start moving into a mount. But he kept the body triangle because Mitch didn't do anything past extending that arm out. He just kind of, pretty sure he like waved at the camera and just making jokes while he had Mike on his back. So that was a little weird. I always find it's weird when fighters do shit like that, when they've got someone on their back or they're in a terrible position and they're like, oh yeah, I'm good. Like, no, dude, you've got Mike Davis on your back. Fucking focus on getting out. You haven't done anything to break the body triangle. So, Mitch Ramirez, all right. The heel hook king, ladies and gentlemen. This is something right here, these red legs that you don't see very often at heavyweight. And they're not there because he was pecking at his legs with leg kicks. No, his legs are red because Walter Walker is taking heavyweight heel hooks home with him. He aggressively ripped that heel hook on Kennedy Nzechukwu. And here's the thing, at heavyweight, conceding to what he did yesterday on Kennedy, he essentially had Kennedy up against the fence in clinch. And he essentially pulled into like a guard, but he pulled into an already existing saddle. I'm almost positive it was saddle. I don't think it was 50-50. It very well could have been, though. I'd have to go back and watch it. But either way, he basically pulled into a 50-50 / saddle, and the heel hook was right there. Right there. And he took that fucker home with him. I would be very hard pressed to say that Kennedy Nzechukwu, his knee is not good, I would say. That's the third heel hook for Walter Walker. All I'm saying is that he does that to the wrong person. And I get that, especially with Kennedy's submission, Kennedy didn't have time to rain down any punches on him when he shot for the heel hook. That heel was exposed really bad. As soon as he dropped back on it, I was like, oh fuck, that heel is there. But Walter Walker may find himself in a little bit of a bad spot against a really good heavyweight. Not saying that Kennedy's not, but he might find himself in a little bit of trouble if he tries to do some shit like that to someone who's really heavy on top and who understands leg locks and can stay safe while being on top and raining down punches on you. We've seen it time and time again where guys will shoot for a leg lock and it gets them in a lot of trouble. They shoot for a leg lock on someone that's too comfortable in that position and knows where their dangers are at, stay away from them, and rain down very heavy punches from there. Because that is a bad spot to be in. If you're attacking someone's leg, all your defenses are tied up. Or at least most of them, 3 of them usually. Both your legs and your one arm at very least. Sometimes it's both, right? So like when you shoot for a submission, especially on legs, you are so vulnerable. And the spot that he shot that submission on last night leaves you super vulnerable. So even though he's got the new meta right now and he's spamming heel hooks, just like any other new, way of doing things, just with like when someone comes in and they've got a funky style, it takes people a couple fights to figure it out, but once they do, you can't be a one-trick pony. So awesome that we're seeing like submissions in heavyweight. We don't see that very often, and he's probably going to continue doing that to people at heavyweight because guys at heavyweight have shit submission skills because they don't think that there's any chance that they're even going to get a submission applied to them because it's heavyweight. So Johnny Walker's brother probably already doing much better than Johnny Walker, but it'll be interesting to see if Walter has this same success against guys that are a little bit more comfortable in leg entanglements. So he got it done again, 3 heel hooks. Moving on, Lauren Murphy's second retirement fight at 42 fucking years old. This fight was boring as shit, just like I thought it would be. I thought that they were feeding her to Eduarda a little bit. Eduarda did not do well. Like, that was not her strongest performance. I thought she was going to bully Lauren Murphy around the cage and tag her up a good bit, but this was just a boring-ass fight. Lauren Murphy looked like a goblin in there with cement for joints. She looked terrible. Absolutely terrible. I don't know why she decided to come back. It was a competitive fight, I'll give her that. It was competitively boring, but it was competitive. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. I don't really have much to say about that fight. Jake Matthews and Chidi Njokuani. Happened a little faster than I thought it would. But I did say that Jake Matthews, if he implements his wrestling, he's going to be a problem submission-wise, and he's going to be a problem ground and pound-wise. I did not expect it to be that quick. I didn't. But Jake Matthews hit a beautiful foot sweep. It doesn't get much better than that. From the clinch, over, under, push the head, clamp down on the hand. Beautiful foot sweep. We actually saw that foot sweep twice, I think, last night. Someone, I want to say like Chris Curtis or something, hit a nice foot. No, Chris Curtis wouldn't hit a foot sweep. Who the fuck was it? Maybe Nate Landwehr? I can't remember. But there was another foot sweep last night that was solid. But Jake Matthews, that's about as good of a foot sweep as it gets. As soon as he hit the sweep, Chidi goes to like a turtle. Can't do that with Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews takes the back. Very, very sticky from there. Chidi tried to shake him off, but Jake Matthews had very good control from the back and ended up sinking in a short choke. Wasn't able to get the full rear naked, which when you've got a decent like submission guy that knows defense, a short choke on the back is a great way to finish if you've already got that choking arm across the neck, but you just can't quite, like they're fighting the hands really well, which Chidi was doing. That short choke, man, it's tight. And he got it off the side. Like you could tell Chidi was trying to get him dragging off the side, which for most people, like if you can get them to the side like that, like he had Jake Matthews, a lot of people don't have enough control to keep that position. You'll see them slide off the back, they're too high, or slide off the side, which I thought Chidi was doing like decent on getting him off, but Jake Matthews was very sticky on the back and hit. God, my nose is really itching. And hit the choke really from like the side of his body. So really impressive. Jake Matthews is always going to be an issue if he can get his hands on you and grapple. Moving on. Max Griffin and Chris Curtis. Kind of a boring fight. Not going to lie to you. Kind of a boring fight. Yeah, Chris Curtis, first fight at welterweight. Max Griffin was talking like he was real excited to welcome him into the new division, and there was kind of some bad blood, but the fight didn't really seem like that, to be honest with you. Chris Curtis, I'm not going to say he's a one-trick pony, but he's very similar to Sean Strickland, right? These guys are not going to really do anything other than just box. Max Griffin, he's got a very kind of spazzy style. That's the way that I would describe Max Griffin. He's very tense and spazzy, and I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. I don't see how he can become like a more dynamic striker with how he currently like sets himself up. I think the reason why Chris Curtis struggled a little bit to put his hands on him was because Max Griffin, although he's a little spazzy and tight, he was moving his head off center line a decent bit. And Chris Curtis, a lot of his work comes off of popping that jab out there, which he was able to do a little bit, but Max Griffin was moving around laterally enough to stay away from that jab for the most part. He got caught a few times coming in, but Chris Curtis seemed like he was having a little bit of trouble with finding his range against Max Griffin. And, you know, sometimes when that happens, we get boring fights. We get fights where both guys are struggling to figure out how they're going to set up their attacks, and things get a little stagnant. And I'm not saying that like they weren't sitting there throwing, but I wasn't overly impressed with the volume that either of these guys had. But Chris Curtis gets it done, makes his welterweight debut. It wasn't very impressive. I'm not really sure who they're going to give Chris Curtis to next. I mean, the reason he came down from middleweight was because he was having problems with how big people were. I also think that he was also getting outskilled a little bit. I don't think that coming down to welterweight is really going to do that big of a difference. Like, I don't really see him having much success in the top 15 at welterweight. There's some very, very skilled grapplers in the welterweight division. There's some really good strikers that Chris Curtis keeps his head on the center line very bad. He's going to get fucked up in the welterweight division. Let's just humor me for a second. Humor me. Also, why the fuck is Canelo versus Crawford being advertised on the UFC page for rankings? Anyways, like, the top 15 in welterweight is... There's a lot of big dudes, lanky-ass dudes, that Chris Curtis is not going to be able to hang with. Okay, Colby Covington. We'll say that. We'll call him Colby Covington. Give him Colby Covington. Maybe like a Jeff Neal, Gilbert Burns. He's been on the decline. That would not be a terrible fight for him. So Chris Curtis may get someone in the top 15. I hope they give him someone else outside the top 15, since that was his first fight in welterweight and it was pretty fucking boring. But all these guys have good grappling. Maybe not Jeff Neal. But like welterweights, they're full of wrestlers and grapplers, okay? Where's Chris Curtis fit into that equation? You tell me. That's all I'm saying. Moving on. Junior Tafa. Just get the Tafas in general the fuck out of the UFC. Junior Tafa, get out. Justin Tafa, follow him right behind. Junior looked a lot better. This is what I'll say. Junior looked a whole hell of a lot better at light heavyweight than he did at heavyweight. I will admit that I was wrong in my breakdown video, only in the sense that skill development wise, Tafa did show pretty good improvement. Okay? He didn't look bad at light heavyweight. Okay? And I don't think that I'd be saying get rid of him if he didn't have his last few performances. That 6-4 record is kind of hard to get past. But if you just look at this fight alone, he made decent improvements. But you cannot expect, I've said this time and time again, and I almost get tired of saying it, and it should be common sense, but apparently it's not. You're not going to get to the highest level being a one-trick pony, or being one-dimensional, or even being two-dimensional. You have to have wrestling defense. You have to be able to get up when someone takes you down. You have to have some sort of jiu-jitsu off your back. It doesn't even have to be submissions. It just has to be, okay, I need to know that when I get put on my back, or if I get up against the cage, here's how I build against the cage. Here's how I get up off my back. I need to get a foot in the hip. I need to create space, whatever. People like Justin Tafa seem to not know that. And it happens way more frequently in the UFC than it should, truthfully. But Tuco Tucos took him down and controlled him multiple times up against the fence. Junior Tafa didn't really have much of he didn't have much motivation, it seemed like, to get up. He kept looking up at the camera, and it was weird. But Tuco was doing a really good job in some spots of keeping his hips higher than Junior's, and was able to get some pretty decent control time against the fence. But even before the submission came, I started kind of feel that Tuco was really breaking him. And a lot of times when you break someone, the submission follows very, very shortly after. Because all the defenses that you had to get through before they were tired are no longer there, and the submission's so easy. But another thing, when guys are in bottom half guard, there's so many guys in the UFC. I don't know if it's because they're like, oh, it's MMA, they're not gonna submit me, they want to beat me up, they're not gonna try and grab this arm triangle. No. People that are not good on the ground will give their arm because they're trying to push, right? They're doing the number one no-no in jiu-jitsu, which is getting your elbows away from your body. That concept of keeping your elbows not here and here, head and arm chokes you can't get caught with. But you see so many fucking guys, whether they're in side control, whether they're in mount, whether they're in top or bottom half guard, with someone chest to chest already. That's where Tuco was. Bottom half guard, chest to chest, head control, right? Then you got Junior Tafa trying to throw this arm over, which is common. A lot of people, when they're on their back, they'll throw that arm near side over to try and turn into a turtle, right? To try to build on their knees and stand up. But if you've got someone on top of you that is actually good at jiu-jitsu, they're going to snag that arm triangle 9 times out of 10. And I'm not saying that Junior was making some huge explosive move, but that's where a lot of these submissions come in. Junior Tafa got caught with his hand up here, and when you've got someone that's this big on top of you, if they use their head, which Tucos did, to block you from getting that arm back, and they've got your shoulders pinned, which he already had, pretty much a wrap when you're this big. We saw it in the who was it? Was it the Nate Landwehr fight? I think it was the Nate Landwehr fight. Fuck, I can't remember. It might have been this one, but there was another triangle tonight where, I think it might have been, fuck, my memory's so bad. But with Tuco, when he snatched up that arm triangle, you can tell sometimes when guys are too high and they're like putting more pressure in the shoulder into the face and not the carotid. But you could tell when Tuco snatched this up that it was right in the right spot. I think he probably could have finished this, not even like hopping over fully to the other side. Probably could have finished it in mount if he really wanted to. But Junior Tafa needs to be cut from the UFC and because he's young. He's young. He's like 27, 28. Go back to the regional scene. Do the Chris Mutino. Fight a couple guys that are on the brink of retirement. Get your confidence back. Maybe a couple guys that are 0-5. Smack them around a little bit, then come back. Maybe in the middleweight division. Who knows? But either way, the Tafas are having a rough go of it in the UFC. They both kind of need to go back to the drawing board. So moving on, Vitor Petrino and Austin Lane. Guys, this is what peak heavyweight athletic performance looks like. Vitor Petrino, okay? I am sick and tired of seeing the Parker Porters of the world, the Jake Colliers, right? The guys who look like they're someone's uncle that had a few too many Miller Lights at the family barbecue and is starting to throw hands with the cousins, you know? Vitor Petrino is what we want to see. He's got skill, and he's not built like your everyday Joe Schmo. I'm not saying that Austin Lane is either, but his skill is, he's a fucking can. And I called that in the very beginning. I said this was going to be a quick fight, round 1, round 2 finish for Vitor Petrino. I thought it might have gotten done on the feet, but Vitor, it looked like he knew his method of getting this victory quick. Got the quick takedown, got on Austin Lane's back. Austin Lane looked like a fish out of water. You could almost see the panic on his face when Vitor got on his back. So, yeah, Austin Lane, dog shit. Vitor Petrino, add him to the list of a couple really like decent up-and-coming heavyweight prospects that are definitely going to add some fun matchups to the division. I'm glad that Vitor Petrino made the jump up from light heavyweight. I think he'll be very successful in the heavyweight division just due to his skill in general. He's levels and levels ahead of many heavyweights, especially in the grappling department. So good for Vitor. Austin Lane can hope he gets cut. There's no room for him in the UFC, but the UFC heavyweight division is a shit show. So, and we see that due to the fact that Taliesin Teixeira got a main event slot against Derrick Henry with 1 win in the UFC. Just saying. Moving on, Nate Landwehr, Morgan Sharir. Really good fight. I thought Nate Landwehr looked awesome the first 2 rounds. I told you I was taking him as an underdog here, that I thought that his grit was going to win it for him. And I think we were trending in the right direction, guys. I do. I think Nate Landwehr got a little bit too caught up in the moment towards the end of the second round. You saw him jaw at Morgan. It seemed like he might have been getting a little emotional. He came out in the 3rd round and overextended a little bit and then got put back on the fence and got clipped really hard right behind the ear, it looked like, and it really wobbled him. Morgan smelled blood in the water and viciously knocked him out. Even though he not flatlined, but he crumbled Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr was coming up on a single leg. It was a good stoppage, don't get me wrong. I don't think anybody's wrong or mad about the stoppage, but Nate Landwehr is a tough bastard, and that's why I thought that he was potentially going to get this dub. And I think that if the 3rd round went the same way that the 2nd round went, because it was 1-1 going into the 3rd, no doubt about it, in my opinion. Okay, and Nate Landwehr, towards the end of the 2nd round, was really starting to pick the pace up. He had hurt Morgan a couple times. I was sitting there on my couch going, damn, is Nate Landwehr actually about to pull off the plus 700 upset? But then he gets out there a little bit too big for his britches, and Morgan puts it on him. But I think he exposed Morgan a little bit, that he's not really the prospect that some people believe that Morgan is. He's got good boxing. He's got a decent chin. He's well-rounded, but Nate Landwehr is a tough son of a bitch. I hope he sticks around for a while. He always takes a lot of damage. He's going to be, they're going to be studying his brain for CTE, I'm sure. But Nate the Train, always a very fun fight. I really thought we were going to get that one done, guys. I really did. Calvin Kattar and Steve Garcia. I don't know if anyone's saying it, but I'll say it. Calvin Kattar probably needs to hang the gloves up. I know that probably sounds harsh. I don't even think he's 37. I think he's 35. He's 37. Hey! But, guys, he got 30-27 all 3 rounds, okay? We can all appreciate how good of a fight the Max Holloway-Calvin Kattar fight was, but it was a good fight because Calvin Kattar stood there and took 1,500 significant strikes to the face. And I do think, just very similarly to how Tony Ferguson was forever changed by his fight with Justin Gaethje, I think the same thing here. Calvin Kattar was changed forever in that fight against Max Holloway. He took way, way, way too much damage to just come back from. And he just has not been the same fighter. He was really aggressive and was a lot more exciting before that fight. Now he's just timid. He landed 26 fucking strikes in 15 minutes. That's like 2 strikes a minute, guys. That's really, really bad. And it's not like Steve Garcia is like laterally moving very quickly and sticking and jabbing, blah, blah, blah. Like he doesn't have movement like Dominic Cruz or Rob or Sean O'Malley, like Corey Sandhagen. He doesn't have that type of movement. But, I mean, I want to say that Calvin Kattar had 8 strikes in the first and second round, where Steve Garcia, I think, was pushing 30 or 35. But he masterclass. I mean, made Calvin Kattar look like he didn't belong. Pretty sure Steve Garcia's on a 6-fight win streak now. He's going to get probably a pretty decent matchup in the featherweight division now, because he just beat number 14. You know what would be a fun fight? Is him against Dan Ige. That would be a really fun fight, in my opinion. Stylistically, I like that match. But Steve Garcia continues his impressive win streak. Calvin Kattar, I think, unfortunately, he probably just needs to hang the gloves up at this point. And I feel like I'm saying that a lot right now, but hear me out. I feel like here at the UFC is kind of at a point where the mainstays for the last 10 years are really starting to age out. And so I know I'm probably saying this guy needs to hang it up or this guy needs to stop. But it's true. Like, a lot of these guys have been around for a long, long time. And it just so happens that a generation of fighters is really on their way out. So it is what it is. Moving on, Stephen Thompson and Gabriel Bonfim. This was a huge fucking robbery, in my opinion. And from the early preliminary social media reactions on Twitter and Instagram, it seems that a lot of people are in the same boat. I would go to say that this is one of the worst robberies we've seen in a while. In recent memory, at least. I know there's been some really fucking bad ones, especially over in the Middle East, on those cards in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. But this one was bad. We see it happen where there's close-ish fights, and then it seems like the refs just choose the fighter that's got more steam behind them, or the younger fighter. And that's absolutely what it felt like happened here, right? Gabriel Bonfim is this big up-and-comer in the welterweight division, very talented. UFC obviously wants to keep driving him. But Stephen Thompson, I had round 2 and round 3 very clearly to Stephen Thompson, okay? I get that Gabriel Bonfim had takedowns and had control time, but this is where the frustrating part of a judge's decision comes into play. That 5 minutes of control time doesn't mean shit. Doesn't mean shit if you're not doing anything with it, which he didn't. He didn't put Stephen Thompson in any sort of real danger when he was controlling him for 5 minutes and 29 seconds. Up against the fence, there was nothing in the clinch, nothing. So, did they base this score off of Stephen Thompson's busted open leg? Is that what they were counting as damage? I'm confused. Now, yes, that leg was disgusting. It was probably the biggest cut of the fight, but it seemed like that's what they were judging the damage off of. And even after, which is crazy, this just goes to show you how much of a dog at 42 years old Stephen Thompson is. He splits his leg open. He's got a 3-inch gash on his shin, and he goes out in the third round and throws about 10 fucking head kicks right off the rip. Doesn't care. Dog. But an absolutely disgraceful decision by the refs. I don't even know what to say. I'm sure we'll see Wonderboy for one more fight. He said he's not quite ready to retire yet, and he looked really good. And there's a big difference in Stephen Thompson looking this good, and then people like Lauren Murphy, 42. Lauren Murphy did not look like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I have no problem with people like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson staying around for a little while longer, because he technically, in many people's opinion, just beat a very young up-and-comer. Right? Fucking bullshit. Wonderboy got robbed, absolutely. But that's how the game goes. If you don't leave it up to the judges, then if you're going to do that, then you have to be prepared for the fact that they might fuck you over. Main event, Black Beast Derek Lewis versus Taliesin Teixeira. I think it was very undeserving that Taliesin Teixeira got a fight against the number 9 ranked heavyweight contender, and also a main event. I thought that was wild. Taliesin Teixeira has one victory in the UFC, and they gave him a fight against Derek Lewis. Now, I'm not trying to bitch and complain here. I'm just trying to point out the fact that should show you the abysmal state of the UFC heavyweight division, and the fact that a guy that has 8 professional fights and 1 fight in the UFC gets a fight against the number 9 and main events a fight night. Like, that should show you the current state of the heavyweight division. It's not in a good state at all. It's not. I did think that Taliesin Teixeira was gonna knock Derek Lewis out. I thought that he was too well-rounded, and I still do think that. I think if they fight 10 times, Taliesin Teixeira probably beats him 8 out of 10 times. It's crazy that in the leading up to the fight, they showed a promo of Taliesin Teixeira saying, "I know that the only danger he possesses is in that right hand." Well, guess what? The left hook's got some juice too, because that's what ultimately did the job, was a left hook, I believe. But it's crazy that guys know going into fights with Derek Lewis, all I've got to do is avoid that right hand. But then Derek Lewis, I don't think he was really playing possum, maybe to a little bit, but he did get hit by Teixeira with like a pinky knuckle on an overhand right. And you saw him like, oh my eye. And he saw Teixeira come in and he tried to hit him, and then he went, oh, I got some space, oh my eye again, and really sold out the second time, and that's when he was able to really close the distance and land that big shot on Taliesin Teixeira. So classic Derek Lewis, just fucking around in there. After he knocks him out, he takes his pants off, moons the crowd, tells everybody he's gonna go home and put a good beating on his wife. He's a character, right? Like, you gotta love Derek Lewis. Absolute legend. He's 40 years old, so with this fight, I'm sure he's going to be calling for someone in the top 5. He's going to try and make another push for the title. Probably not going to happen. I don't see him beating Tom Aspinall, but I didn't see him beating Taliesin Teixeira, and here we are. So Derek Lewis is the biggest enigma in the UFC. He continues to shock the world every single time people count him out. So gotta love it, Derek Lewis. I'm gonna tune in every single time he fights. Overall, very good fight card. Other than the robbery of Stephen Thompson, I thought this card was one of the best fight nights we've had in a while. I hope the UFC keeps the ball rolling and keeps giving us fight nights of the likes of this, because this is how they should be done. But as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you think that was as big of a robbery as I did? Or do you think Gabriel Bonfim really came out with it? But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for stopping by.